Welcome back, college football fans, to another episode of Over the Middle. And as always, we're brought to you by our friends at YourView. YourView is your home for the best, and I mean the best high school football games across the country. If they're playing high school football this season during the coronavirus outbreak, then YourView has you covered from one end of the country to another. Tune into your local YourView station. Plus, I like this. This is awesome. Cox TV customers can watch the games for free from anywhere using the new Contour app. Download the Cox Contour app on the Apple App Store or Google Play. Or you can do what I do, head over to watch.yourview.com and sign up to watch the best games in the country. And this includes the great slate of games that we have on tap for October 23rd. The 4 games of the week on YourView Oklahoma features Bixby at Muskogee and Midwest City at Putnam City North. Then if you're in Nebraska, guess what? We have high school playoffs already. Yes, playoffs in Nebraska. It's the first round of playoffs for D1, D2, and Class A. That matchup will be determined here in the next couple of days. Then on YourView's Game Time Arizona, we've got a monster matchup between Brophy and Chaparral. That game features Ohio State-bound quarterback Jack Miller and plenty of other big-time players recruiting fans know well. And then on YourView Louisiana, we've got Sulphur and Southside. All those games kick off at 7 p.m. local time on Friday, October 23rd. So don't forget to tune into your local YourView station, download the Contour app, or log on to watch.yourview.com. All right. For those that are new to the pod, I'm Jeremy Crabtree, your host, and I've spent the last 25 years, yes, covering college football recruiting at Rivals.com, ESPN, and I'm now at KMBC 9 News in Kansas City. And here on Over the Middle, we like to dive deep into the world where college football, high school football, and recruiting intersect. And we're now 2 months deep into the college football season, and there's been plenty to digest already. Just a few days before taping this, Alabama coach Nick Saban tested positive for the coronavirus. Multiple SEC games were postponed. And we're on the verge. Yes, we're on the verge of finding out if the Big Ten's testing plan is going to work out or not. We've also seen a slew of high school football games across the country either delayed, postponed, or teams postponing their seasons until the spring. We even had some seasons canceled outright. There is no question that the coronavirus has had an impact on college football and the world of recruiting unlike we've ever seen before. And that's why we're going to take a deep dive and continue to dig deep into the storylines that COVID-19 creates in college football. We've talked with K-State's Taylor Barat, Michigan's Matt Dudek, Akron's Oscar Rodriguez, and Arizona's Cody Moore about how they're handling the recruiting process. And in our last podcast, we went up to Iowa and visited with Matthew Bain of the Des Moines Register about how COVID has made Iowa, yes, Iowa, the center of some of the biggest recruiting storylines in the country. The state association in Iowa has ruled some players that transferred into the state to play because their home states were not playing football eligible. And guess what? They've ruled some other players ineligible. It's a crazy, crazy mess up there in Iowa. And in case you missed that pod or any of our podcasts, be sure to check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, or follow me at Twitter at Jeremy Crabtree. All right. This week, we're heading back into the college ranks, and we couldn't be more excited to be joined by Wes Fritz, the director of player personnel at Tulane University. Fritz is in his 5th year with the Green Wave, and he's helped Tulane become a recruiting powerhouse in the American Athletic Conference. Wes, welcome in here to Over the Middle.
Appreciate you having me, Jeremy.
So before we dive into and talk about COVID's impact on Tulane's recruiting, I'd love to talk to you about the success you guys have had over the past 3 classes at Tulane. I mean, I know everybody likes to look at LSU's and the Alabamas of the world, but against your peers, you guys have been killing it. I mean, after that 2018 class, 2019 class, you guys took it to another level in 2020 and signed the highest ranked class ever at Tulane. So I'm curious to get your thoughts. Why have you guys had some success recently?
I think, first and foremost, we've had some success on the field, back-to-back bowl wins that hadn't been done here at Tulane before. And also, we're just really harping on 3 things: the quality education at Tulane, its top 40 in the country degree, the city, and also, just the chance to come play for, a program that's, turning it around and getting things going right now.
And you touched on a couple things I want to piggyback off right there. I mean, you guys have really kind of built it helps to sell a program when you guys have built a foundation under Coach Fritz. I mean, that has to be good knowing that, uh, like it or not, Tulane's had a lot of ups and downs, and they've had coaches come and go. But now that you guys have been there, how much is having that established head coach and staff really help you guys when you go out on the trail?
It's been really good because there's been a lot of staff continuity. So, a lot of these kids we've been recruiting for 2 or 3 years, and they've gotten to know our coaches, whether that be camps or on-campus visits or, so on and so forth. And, he just signed a new contract as well. So we're able to tell that to recruits and just let them know that they're going to be playing for the same staff for the next 4 years.
What's it like to recruit to the city of New Orleans? I mean, it's a cool atmosphere, but it's also, I think people don't understand how cool your campus is there at Tulane. It is pretty impressive. But is the city of New Orleans itself a selling tool that you guys go out and use?
Yeah, we do. Our campus, you kind of touched on it. It's kind of its own little bubble. It's in uptown New Orleans. So that's about a 5-minute drive without traffic to downtown to the French Quarter. And, I was the same way. I had never been to New Orleans prior to taking the job here. So it was all new for me too. And whenever I heard New Orleans, all I thought about was, Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
I think that's, what a lot of these kids and their parents think when they first hear it. But once we really get them here and show them campus and everything we have to offer and, what we have in our facilities, show them it's not just Bourbon Street and the French Quarter, and they're really impressed. So we do use it as a selling tool.
I tell you what, every time I go to New Orleans, I come back, I feel like I've gained about 10 pounds just because the food is great. I mean, so I got to ask, this is something near and dear to my heart because I love food, but do you guys utilize all the great food for official visits? I mean, do you guys take kids out to a cool place, or do you guys have a catering? What do you feed recruits when they come into town?
Yeah. I'd put our official visit up against anybody, which, is really a bummer this year since it looks like
Yeah.
do that. But, I don't know who enjoys it more, the kids or the parents, whenever they come for the visits. But yeah, we eat really good. That's something our staff, when we first got here, I think quite a few of us put on 10 to 15 pounds the first year we were here. But yeah, we have some different restaurants down in the French Quarter, rent some places out down there. And I mean, it's great food, as you may know.
So I'm assuming you get some seafood and some good stuff like that.
Some seafood, oysters, fish, jambalaya, red beans and rice, gumbo, all that stuff. So I love it.
Yeah, no, I wrote a story at ESPN about one of the biggest recruiting weapons in the SEC is the catfish hole in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So it is kind of cool to see how coaches utilize food as part of the recruiting process, and I got to imagine it's a fun little side to help you guys when you guys can host official visits to utilize. So also, you guys are in one of the best football talent bed areas in the country. I think people don't understand and appreciate how good the talent is in Louisiana per capita. Louisiana and Mississippi produce more NFL players than Texas, California, Florida. So it's a great talent base. How much of that talent base is that you guys can recruit to can be attributed to some of the success that you guys have had?
Initially when we first got here, the roster was mostly comprised of Louisiana kids. And there's a ton of talent down here, but obviously everybody recruits Louisiana too.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a program that doesn't recruit Louisiana. So, I mean, sometimes there's not enough to go around. So we've really branched out to, the rest of the Southeast, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Texas.
Yeah.
Tennessee, the Carolinas. So we've been, we've just been trying to get our brand out there, and even as recently as the last couple of years, we've been recruiting nationally up in the Northeast and in California because, the name Tulane is, very prominent in those areas too because there's a lot of students, that go here to Tulane from those areas. But yeah, there's so much talent down here, and And, you can definitely find some hidden gems in places like Alabama and Mississippi. We just had one drafted last year from Mississippi. He's with the Chiefs, rookie with the Chiefs right now. He's from Mississippi. So, I mean, tons of talent down here, like you said.
Well, you kind of piggyback perfectly into my next question because I was going to ask you about. I mean, you guys do a good job in Louisiana, but you guys have branched out. You've gone into Mississippi, and I noticed you guys have been going into Texas a lot. It's like that. That's on purpose. You guys are doing that so you can go out and not just have to compete in your own backyard.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of recruiting battles too when that happens because we have SMU and Houston, right over there west. And but yeah, we're definitely trying to branch out and expand our recruiting footprint.
What's the sell when you go and talk to kids in say Texas? Do you sell that the academics, or is it something if there's the whole package? I mean, how hard? What's the message you sell to kids in Texas when you talk about Tulane?
I think you hit it right there. Just the chance to get a top 40 education and then play in an iconic city, play football here in New Orleans, and at a high level. I mean, the American Conference is, extremely competitive every single week. Last year, we finished the season with 4 teams ranked in the top 25. We peaked at number 26. And there's a lot of kids too that we recruit from over there that have New Orleans ties. Whether it's displaced by Katrina. So there's a lot of kids that have been here, come here on vacation. So they already have a familiarity with New Orleans.
Yeah, you touched on something right there that I think that people don't understand and appreciate. Right or wrong, sad stories about people having to be displaced by Katrina, and a lot of those kids were babies or were not even born then that are now to the point where you're be able to recruit those kids, and they have their family ties to the city of New Orleans. So especially in that Houston area is full of a lot of people that were displaced by Katrina. So that has to be something that could potentially be useful for you guys when you go out and recruit.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, there's a lot of family connections too. A lot of times we'll hear that they have family that maybe lives on the North Shore or in Slidell or right around this area. So very frequently when we're recruiting those kids, they have Louisiana ties.
Yeah. Well, let's move on and talk a little bit about how you guys at Tulane are handling recruiting during COVID. Despite the postponements, cancellation, and delays on both the high school and college level, recruiting hasn't continued, but it sure looks a lot different than it has ever done before, right?
Yeah, definitely. There has been some good in it, though. I think there's a lot of things that we've taken from it that we can apply in the future. It's not good that we can't have kids on campus.
Yeah.
That's, I hate it for them the most because this is a special experience for them that they're missing out on, getting to visit places and everything like that. And I wish we could do it too. It's fun for us to have these families on campus and show them what we're about and show them, what Tulane has to offer. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely been challenging.
So we are in this dead period, and the NCAA has kicked the can down the road again, and we're in a dead period throughout the rest of this year now. And the new world that we're living in is kind of given a birth to a lot of new terms that I don't think we ever would have imagined, including the words like virtual visit, the term virtual visit. And I'm not going to ask you to give away state secrets, but how have you guys adjusted your visit process? I'm assuming normally on Fridays you're probably scrambling to host unofficial visits or even probably an official visit too. But now, when you have visits, they're all done virtually.
Yeah, we have a Pano View app, which we were fortunate to get. So it has a Pano view of our whole campus, and you can kind of click around and go into our locker room. It even takes you downtown to the French Quarter. Our facilities, things like that. So we're able to, put kids on Zoom and go through that with them and just kind of show them our campus from an aerial view first, and then, show them our facilities. So that's been really good for us. And then also, we did some stuff. We called it Power Hour, but we would just get all the coaches, in a room, and we'd just be, going through, our top prospects, getting them on there. A couple times a week, just tell them that we want them here, things like that. We'd switch it up each week. We'd have, the equipment manager on there one week. He'd go through the whole equipment presentation, athletic trainer, academics, nutritionist, strength coach, so on and so forth. So I think that's one of our big sells too, is just our staff. Once you're around, you can really feel at home here. And we were really trying to convey that to recruits.
How hard is it to keep the attention of these prospects? Because you can tell when you're talking face to face to a mom and dad or a prospect if their mind is wandering elsewhere, and now you're having to do it all virtually. It's got to be extremely difficult to keep it, kind of hit that sweet spot. You don't want to go drone on for hours and hours and hours with these kids, but you also want to make sure that you're getting your message across. It's got to be almost an impossible task in some ways.
Yeah. And the tough thing too is, you're sitting there just thinking about all the stuff you're doing with them. You're not thinking about, they probably have 4 or 5 other Zoom calls scheduled that day with other schools. Yeah. So, you had to be mindful of that as well too. Sometimes it was Zoom overload for some of these kids. You could just tell, you could see it on their, in their eyes, but yeah, it was definitely, had to put your creative hat on and come up with new things that would that are exciting and keep their attention. Like I said, we were trying to showcase everybody in our whole department, our whole athletic facility.
I know that your dad and other great head coaches that love recruiting always talk about how relationships are the most important part of the recruiting process, and this has got to test those ways that you guys build relationships. So is this kind of made coaches and recruiters just rely on the relationship building skills even more than ever before?
Yeah. And one thing I think we do well is, it's not just going to be your recruiting coach being the one recruiting, or just your position coach. We want you to get to know the offensive side of the ball too. If you're a safety, I want you to know the O-line coach. So we set up things where, you get to know coaches on the other side of the ball, so you have more of a familiarity with the entire staff. And that's one thing that I think has really helped out this year, especially during virtual visits, is trying to get as much familiarity as you can with the entire staff.
Well, I've talked to coaches about this, and they actually have said that they feel like they know this class maybe better than ever before, than any of the other recruiting classes, because of the unique ways that you guys had to almost over communicate and talk to these recruits. Before maybe a guy would come on an unofficial visit or two, then come on his official visit, and you would maybe have contact with them just here or there. But now that you're doing the Zoom calls and the regular check-ins and stuff like this, I don't know, you tell me, Wes, do you guys feel like you know this class better than maybe any of the other classes you've ever recruited before?
Yeah, that's a good point. We've done everything except see them in person and shake their hand. I feel like, whereas if you had a kid coming into a game that weekend, you might just wait till then to show them around and plan everything. But instead, you're setting up 2-3 Zoom calls a week with him and calling him at night and talking to his parents. You're getting to know everybody, throughout this whole process. So I do think that's a good point. I think, know this class as well as any of the other ones, even without them visiting.
I'm also curious how you guys are working on relationships with the high school coaches, because one of the biggest complaints I've heard from high school coaches over the past 5 years or so is that they feel like they kind of had an end run done around them because of the way that technology is developed. And, you guys can, as recruiters, can communicate directly now to prospects, unlike any other way that we've ever had in the past. But now that you guys aren't able to have these face-to-face contact with recruits, I got to imagine the high school coach is a bigger part of the process, that maybe like what we used to see back in the good old days.
Yeah, definitely. So we have some academic requirements here. So, luckily for us, we usually have to talk to the high school coach and go through him first and foremost to get transcripts and review those and test scores. And also we're huge on character. We're not going to sign anybody, no matter how good they are, if their character doesn't check out with their high school coach. So we definitely try and keep those guys involved. I know with 7-on-7 and different things going on right now, there's a lot of different avenues to get in touch with prospects and a lot of people, talking to them. And I think there's a happy median communication wise.
So we're also at a point where there are high schools all over the country that are either not playing or they postponed it and their seasons until the spring, which would then push their seasons until after both signing periods. So I'm curious from a recruiter's perspective, how you guys are handling evaluations. Are you looking, again, you guys have what, 15 commits for 2021? I mean, you guys have your foundation of class there, but I got to imagine there were some guys you guys had on your board as, we need to see senior Phil. We need to check this guy out again. So I'm curious how you guys are handling evaluations. I mean, what are you going to do to make the final calls on some of these guys? Or are you going to look more at states that are playing football versus states that aren't playing football? It's got to be really difficult for you guys.
Yeah, it's really tough. I feel sorry for the kids that aren't getting to play this fall because they're not getting to put film out there from their senior year. Because there's drastic improvement from kids from their junior year to senior year, especially the type of caliber kid we're recruiting. So I feel sorry for those kids, but we're definitely each week. I'm cutting up film of all sorts of kids. We had 2 or 3 offers go out this week of kids that it looks like a different person their senior year. Guys that we wanted to check back on their senior year that we might have had graded a little lower as a junior, and they're lights out right now. So I know there's lots of kids like that out there that aren't getting to play right now and are having to wait until the spring. But for those kids, we're really trying to get them to send us as much workout video as they can, movement video, anything that could aid in the recruiting process and show us their skill set, even though it's not in a game setting. But yeah, it's tough for those guys. There's going to be some spots still open after signing day, so there's they're going to have a chance to get some looks for sure. But yeah, it's tough.
That was going to be my question. I haven't really asked this to the other coaches. I should have asked this to other coaches that I've had on. But do you think you guys maybe will hold a spot or two? Everybody normally has a scholarship open or so, but I'm wondering if now that we have some high schools across the country not playing until spring, do we see coaches maybe, hey, we're going to hold a 1 over here or 2 over here just in case? Is that something that you guys have actually thought about or talked about at this point, or is it just going to happen?
I think a lot of times, people hold spots open for graduate transfers. So, there may be a kid where, he's playing lights out his senior year in the spring, and they may say, hey, we like this kid's chances for the next 4 years over a graduate transfer who might just be a Band-Aid for a year and get us through the year. So, but it's unlike any other year. You never, for somebody for a spring season, but typically it'll just happen. You'll be trying to sign, your number, and all kinds of stuff happens right before signing day, as you know, and you might not get to that number. So usually you have spots that are open that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah, no question. That as you alluded to, things do happen, and especially we're in a unique world with many of these kids not even stepping on campus for visits. I'm curious, Wes. How many? Off the top of your head, how many of the 15 or so commits that you guys have even been on campus? I was talking to Matt Dudek a couple of weeks back, and he said almost all the kids that they have committed in their class haven't been on campus. So did you guys do a good job of trying to get kids on campus early on? And a lot of these commits are kids that have been in town, or are some of these guys committed to you guys sight unseen?
We actually, the last spring practice, we actually had a ton of kids in town for a 7-on-7 tournament here in New Orleans. That's another benefit of being in a city like New Orleans. There's all kinds of recruiting events here, so kids come visit while they're here for that. So a handful of those kids were here for that, but I'd probably say half at most have been on campus. So a lot of it's sight unseen, and those are mostly just the local guys.
Yeah, that's crazy. That just blows my mind because you've done this long enough to know how important that visit is, and it's in this decision that these guys have to make, and they're making it sight unseen. That's just shows you the world that we're living in. It's so different than anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah, definitely. It's the one thing I thought was interesting was the amount of commitments that early in the process. I saw at one point there was like 800 kids had committed in this class, where at that point last year there was only 300. So at some point, it clicked that kids probably aren't going to be able to go on campus.
Eh, eh, do you think that's maybe on the kids' side, trying to make sure that have a spot for protected reserve with this crazy world that we're in?
Yeah, I thought a lot about it. I think it was just kind of a domino effect. Spots were filling up, and then everybody was, came to the realization that you're not going to be able to go visit campus this year, so better lock down a spot.
So what's the biggest thing recruiters miss about being out on the recruiting trail? I mean, because well, it's a grind, but it's also a lot of fun. I mean, so talking to your guys in house there, what's the biggest thing you guys miss when you're not out on the trail?
I think, particularly for this year, it's just seeing work habits, being able to go to practice and see how a kid works, see what kind of leader he is, see how he interacts with his teammates, talk to the people in the school, see what they have to say about him. Everybody from the head coach to just a random teacher that you might pass. Just that kind of stuff, the in-person things that are so crucial that you see whenever you go there. And then also at camps this summer, that was tough not having camps as well, because we try and sign a lot of kids based off camp, because they're actually right there in front of you, doing it for you, and you have measurables on them and so on and so forth. But I would say just, character, not being able to see it firsthand.
Well, and that's something that's not measured in a star ranking. I mean, yes, so there's guys that are 4 stars or 5 stars that have crappy character or don't have that work ethic, and that's something that I got to imagine it's got to be extremely difficult for you guys to even quantify or measure with this environment. Is that going back to making sure and doing your homework and talking to the coaches, high school coaches, or talking to anybody and everybody that might be connected with this prospect?
Yeah. Like you said, we're talking to everybody on the staff. A lot of the areas that we recruit right now, we have some sort of connection with somebody on our staff. They either know the head coach or somebody on staff really well. So, we're taking their word, but also just trying to talk to as many coaches on their staff as we can. And also, one thing that we're really big on is checking attendance on transcripts. So we've kind of found there's a direct correlation. If a kid has a lot of absences in high school, I mean, he's not going to have a very good track record in college. I mean, he's going to be, late for things, miss things. We found a direct correlation with that.
Wow.
So we're big on checking absences on transcripts.
I tell you what, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I know that coaches go and talk to the counselors and pull the transcripts. But I tell you what, Wes, I don't know if I've ever heard of a coaching staff going and checking absences. That's a kind of a cool and unique aside.
Yeah, I mean, there are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. For the most part, I mean, it's pretty telling.
So, but before I let you go, I got to ask what it was like to grow up in a football family. And in case our listeners haven't figured it out yet, your dad is Tulane head coach Wes Fritz, and he's been successful everywhere he's been. Blinn, Central Missouri, Sam Houston State, Georgia Southern, and now Tulane. Being around football your entire life, did you know right away you wanted to make it your career?
Yeah, ever since I was young, I've been going to every single one of his games. I think I used to bug the crap out of him when I was younger, just be asking him, questions all day. Eventually, he just stopped answering because, it was at the end of the day when he got home, he was tired of hearing questions. But, one unique thing or perspective that I think I have due to being a coach's kid is I've seen football at all different levels. He was the head coach at Blinn, a junior college, Central Missouri Division II, Sam Houston State FCS, and then Georgia Southern, and then now Tulane. So I think I have a pretty good grasp of what kind of player plays at what level. And, that's one thing that I think has really helped me out when evaluating, is being able to see football at all those different levels. But yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
But you didn't go into an on-the-field coaching position. You got into personnel. So what was it about recruiting that made you want to do it for a living? I mean, because not everybody says, hey, I mean, most people grow up, they say, I want to be a college coach, or I want to be a coach and coach this position, that position. But not too many people will say, hey, I want to go into personnel, into recruiting. What made you want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, these kind of spots didn't really exist.
Yeah.
I've always been infatuated with the evaluation process, just seeing player progression, and things like that. Just how a kid could go from, unrecruited or very lightly recruited and develop into an all conference player or a draft pick. Ever since I was younger, I've just been kind of infatuated with that. And then one of our really good family friends, he was a GM in the NFL. And so I kind of, looked up to him and saw what he was doing. I've always thought it was really interesting.
Who was that, by the way?
His name's Dennis Hickey.
Okay.
Yeah. He was with the Bucks, and now he's with the Bills right now.
So you learned a lot by just watching him, interacting with him. What helped? What helped you get to make him so part of your development?
Just knowing him and just getting his perspective on how he sees the game, how he evaluates players, seeing his rise in the profession, and so on and so forth. I mean, he's been awesome. Even at Tulane, we'll call him now, and he'll just give us perspective that's awesome.
Well, I don't envy the guys in you guys' positions, because you guys have it's tough. It's tough, and good coaches will tell you it's about the Jimmies and Joes first. If you have good Jimmies and Joes, the X's and O's look a lot better. So it's guys like you in these positions have to put the talent together to have success. Let the coaches be a success. So there's a lot of pressure on you guys to be success, and it looks like you guys are on the right track at Tulane.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a work in progress. We're just taking it, day by day, especially right now during these times.
It's a unique time. So, Wes, I can't say thank you enough for joining us here on game day. I mean, we're taping this on October 16th, and you guys are about to head over and play a big game here tonight. So good luck in that one. And I appreciate you taking the time, and wish you lots of success for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, folks, we covered a lot in this episode of Over the Middle, but we are just getting started. We're going to continue to take that deep dive into the impacts COVID-19 has had on high school football, college football, and the recruiting process. We continue to have some great guests lined up to help us examine this new world that we're living in, and I hope you're back with us again next week. I also hope you take some time to watch some high school football this week. Don't forget, we've got a great set of games lined up on YourView. Head over to watch.yourview.com. That's watch.yourview.com, and you'll be able to watch some of the top high school matchups Friday night and all season long. I'm Jeremy Crabtree. Thank you for listening to Over the Middle. Talk to you guys again next week.